How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do a contract again called Cargo for the Fishers. A bit of a simple one, but it ended up being I've got to go and get a curtainside trailer and kind of take it to a location. I'm on North Peak National Park. Yeah, and it was a good chance to take the Tatra Phoenix out, since it's always got a bit of a limited setup you can run on it, but just towing a trailer is pretty simple. So yeah, cutting along basically over to this bottom corner of the map really, grab that curtainside trailer and then up to this side of the lake, kind of dropping it off somewhere. Yeah, fairly inconsequential, if I can even say it, inconsequential mission. But nonetheless, yeah, good excuse, like I said, to take the Tatra Phoenix out. It's been in my rotation of vehicles quite near the top of the garage list, because yeah, I kind of keep wanting to use it in some form or either. But like I said, it's got the crane that's a massive crane for what it is, but it's still as crap as the smaller cranes and slower and more annoying. I think it forces you to remove the sideboard if you have that crane on, because I think it sits between the I don't know, it sits like it won't sit over the front axle or whatever. Yeah, you just don't have many options on this thing really. Well, not as many as most other trucks. I'm sure this is the one. I could be mistaken on this, but I'm sure this hasn't got a saddle low either, which now makes it, if you take the crane, you can only get a saddle high, I believe. So now you've got to have like a fat version of a trailer, really. And I'm quite surprised this doesn't have a saddle low, because the tyres on it they're either 46 or 48 inch. They're still relatively on the smaller side. There's certainly trucks with bigger tyres than that still have the saddle low, so it doesn't force the chassis to sit too high and everything. I certainly don't think the chassis is even close to too high on this thing. Just for whatever reason, they seem to have made it like a very limited vehicle. So yeah, it's one of them where I've been wanting to whip it out. That's what she said, of course. And as it just happened, it was like, well, a curtainside trailer, that's certainly doable. I can now put the sideboard on, so I've got a goddamn horse with me. So even able to get them colour coded. I don't know, they've almost gone for a bit of a JCB orangey yellow. Yeah, it worked out pretty nice. And again, with the Tatra Phoenix, I like this vehicle because it's actually got quite a bit of pace to it. Now I like the fact, as a good example, it's in high gear. Even though I'm in like the boggy stuff, I fired a winch out. It's very generous with the high gear. It, within reason, just lets you sit in high gear, even if it's going to wheel spin and all the rest of it. But I prefer that to it just automatically kicking you out of high gear. At least there, for example, I've got the option to keep it pinned. It is making the wheels spin quick, so it's still clawing away for grip and all the rest of it. It's still trying to chew the mud up in front of it. I can also fire a winch out. Yeah, it just works out nicely. I've left the original tyres that I believe you get when you sort of get this truck. They are muds. I just left them on. Yeah, I drew a line to go right. It's this mission that says you have to go the long way around the marshes or whatever. It's this roadblock. I obviously drew the lines not even thinking and just went around here, but I decided, as you can see, last minute kind of slammed on, realised that I was about to miss an opportunity to climb this rock slide, so I seized the moment. I also, when I was sort of customising this truck at the beginning, I had the choice to put it's got a bumper that near enough deletes like the bottom front bumper on this thing. I actually like it as an option. I think this is a very good looking truck with the bottom bumper, so I actually kept it on, and knowing that I'm essentially going to have an increased chance of catching the front bumper, so particularly because of that, which is not in the video, but it was just when I was building the truck before I started the video, I was quite curious to climb that rock slide thing just to see how much the front bumper would cause an issue, and it didn't really. So I certainly, objectively, the other bumper's going to be better. See, now again, it's in high gear and I'm snaking around trying to find somewhere with a bit of grip, because I know it is particularly boggy here. When I went this way the other day with a road train, it was the Tagers were even getting bogged down in there. Yeah, the fact that this just stays in high though, I just quickly saved the footage there, but because I ended up cutting over the rock slide, I just had to delete a few waypoints, which thankfully this time they actually deleted instead of placing. Yeah, another waypoint like 2 inches from the other one, which seems to be of use to no one, but the game likes to keep its options open. I'll give it that. Yeah, at least we've got a bit of road now. You see, places like that, I just caught my bumper a bit. That's probably where putting that bumper that just sits higher, and it's got more of a skid plate. It's got a little winch thing on the front and that, but it does seem like It's sort of got bars running underneath the truck. That should help with that a little bit, but again, I'm just, yeah, it's one of them. I don't always necessarily pick what is objectively the best thing. Sometimes there is a bit of aesthetics going on. Even I've said before with tyres as far as muds, I often, even though there is potentially like better muds versus some others, I just pick which tread pattern I like the most most of the time. Obviously within, say, the mud tyres or whatever. Yeah, in this truck's case, it's just a good looking truck with a bumper it's got on. But yeah, in the right circumstances, I mean, it's got the snorkel up to the roof, which is nice. It's actually, for a fairly compact vehicle, it's kind of tall. Like, there is lower slung vehicles, I'd say, to where, like, and the snorkel is in what I would say is my favourite place. It's definitely what she said. It's kind of at the back of the cab, so even when you go in driving into water and you kind of face plant the water, it just doesn't hit that snorkel as quick as, like, even if it's drowning your front windscreen, if you go in on an angle, it's not quite got that snorkel yet. But as is the case in this game in enough places, you then start to hit like the riverbed and level out, at which point your snorkel's probably just tall enough to stay out the water. But it's often, if you've got a snorkel like that's on the bonnet near the front of a truck, particularly like, say, an American truck that's got like a big hood, kind of a long nose truck, yeah, you're kind of dunking that into the water before your truck's even got there, and you can often like take engine damage when really the truck's tall enough that once it's levelled out it won't drown it, but it's just not the best snorkel placement. And yeah, you can have a spare tyre, which is nice. I mean, I've got a goddamn horse, so he's got 4 of them, but an extra one won't go amiss. You're also able to take the rear fenders off, which is just nice. Some trucks let you do that option, some just, even if the option's there, it won't let you remove them for some reason, but yeah, these ones do, which is nice. I just think it makes the rear axles a little bit cleaner and clearer, less stuff to catch on. So, like I say, I like the truck. It's just a bit of a shame they kind of like de facto nerfed it by making it so limited in like the different setup options you can have. If you could just have a normal crane on this, like say a standard Russian blue crane, even though they're a bit naff, at least if you could have that. I like the fact that it's got this custom sideboard. Looks wise, it also colour matches it. But if you also had the option of just a normal sideboard and the blue crane, and then you could still get a trailer, and yeah, if there was a saddle load, just little things like that. I won't hold my breath for it, but it's a shame because it's one of the better trucks in the game, really. One of the better DLC trucks we've sort of ever been given. I'd still say the Zik 605R would probably win that one, but yeah, the Tatra Force as well. I certainly prefer this between those two, but they did improve that. I don't think that's as bad as it initially was. I think that got a bit of a bad first impression, and rightly so. I mean, the fact that even they decided to tweak it. You'll see now some... Right, I am steering. We'll get into the steering in a minute. Now, yeah, this bridge, I clipped my tyres on it. It was not looking good. I fired out some miracle level panic winch. I'm still not sure now what the hell I even winched to, even with the benefit of editing, and I can keep winding the footage back. I'm still not entirely sure. I did a winch from like the second winch point in, and it'll reach that tree, but I'm pretty certain that's a tree that'll pop out of the ground. It wouldn't quite reach the solid tree next to it. I was just checking with the winch points. Like, obviously I've got some winch connected somewhere. I did a panic winch. I don't know if it's on the bridge. So I've got to do a winch from the front to that tree. So I did it. I'm starting pulling in. I'm revving. Look how close it gets to stalling. But if that stalled, obviously the winch should auto disconnect and I'd have rolled. The Lo4f, goddamn professional. I'm pretty sure he is going lower than he usually does. But he refused to unpack. He was staying with us, one of the boys. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that, to be honest. I certainly almost seriously ballsed it all up by crashing, yeah. Some panic winch again, if anyone knows where the hell that even got onto, I don't know. Yeah, pretty happy with the escape, pretty happy with the Lo4f. I mean, I'm pretty sure I near enough went, like, sideways at one point. But he didn't flinch. He knew the situation. I needed his weight to stay in the Tatra. And yeah, thankfully it was like just before I got the trailer as well, so Didn't really have like that hanging off the bridge and kind of messing things up, because if I did, that probably would have slid off the bridge and then obviously started pulling the back end of the Tatra down, and yeah, it probably wouldn't have gone well. But that was definitely pretty close to a roll. I mean, worst case, if it happened, I'd be willing to bet money the goddamn horse of a vehicle would have landed in some form or manner where he'd get back to his wheels. And then I'd rescue the Phoenix the old-fashioned way. The Phoenix, to be fair, is a piece of piss, really, to flip with a loaf. But yeah, I'm glad it didn't come to that. Like, yeah, playing it a bit risky. Loaf was feeling dangerous. It gets a little bit slower now, but I think if I'd put it in high gear, the game probably would have let me stay in high, but I think at some point, yeah, it was just better to drop down to auto, as much as it hurts. But that's another reason. I mean, this mission tonight was, again, pretty chilled. It was just a good excuse to kind of do a lap of the map as best as you can on this one anyway, since they've got a big fat lake kind of carving its way down the middle. But yeah, I mean, the video is what, say, almost 20 minutes. I didn't want, for such a simple mission, I mean, I could have taken out, like, you know, Dan, Bruce, Steve, some of the slower stuff, but it just it would have been a 30-minute mission, which is fine if it's a bit more complex, but yeah, just to grab a trailer, I wanted to get my foot down a little bit, do a little bit of a speed run on it, I suppose. And it'd be nice as well if they added slightly bigger tyres to the Tatra. So I'm pretty sure it could... Well, I'm pretty sure it could fit a few extra inches. There's definitely what she said. There's no other way of saying it. Like, the tyres are spaced far enough apart. You often get with, say, like the Derry 4520, for example, with the 3 rear axles. They all sit close enough that you can't really get any bigger tyres on that, otherwise they're going to start clipping into each other. I believe as well that's why on the Kenworth 963 the muds are 69-inch tyres, not 71, because they're 71 on the tyres it comes with, but the muds you can choose, I believe, are 69-inch because they're clipping at 71 for some reason. But yeah, if you look on this, the axles are actually spaced enough to, and I'd say there's enough room in the wheel arches. I mean, again, you're not going to be banging like probably 5-inch bigger tyres, but it'd be nice, yeah, just an extra couple. And I think it could handle it, and it just, there's little things, again, like just the way the game's scaled. When you go through muddier sections, just the fact that this is on the smaller side of tyres, I suppose, relatively speaking, you do sit a little bit lower. You see now, though, I mean, I am kind of throwing it around a bit. I jumped over a rock there. It's, yeah, a good vehicle. I like it. It's because it's got nice punch in the high gear. It's quite a fun one to drive, really. Sort of keeps you on your toes if you want it anyway. You can obviously stick it in auto or low and cruise along like that, but yeah, if you want a truck that's a little bit livelier, it's not a bad option. With the right mission, because of the limited setup. I'd say as well, in like the time of day, I kept changing it, but I think because I left the game running a bit, it's doing different weather patterns and all sorts. It's not a bad looking map in its own right as well. It's a pretty nice view as I'm driving up there. I think I rolled there, on the exploration video. That's where the loaf, yeah, I think he jumped himself back into the sideboard. He's trained for these situations. Yeah, just quickly change the footage. See, that's changing to like the middle of the day, and it looks kind of dark. It's raining, but it looks pretty cool. I thought, yeah, well, not a problem. If you did want to get rid of that, just for what it's worth, if you do want it going back to sunny, you have to basically load to another phase and back to this. Or maybe if you just load to Duncan Bay and back to this, but like, yeah, that's how I tend to reset the weather. And then it just, every time you change it to 1 PM, it's like standard issue, bright sunny day, which they don't seem to last as long as they used to. But other than that. But yeah, if you leave the game long enough, say I've left it and it's ticked over, like, done a whole, gone through the night and back to the morning, it just changes the weather at that point. Even if you're at midday. And yeah, with the steering on this thing, it's funny because it's got rear steer, and I wouldn't really rank it that high on a list of trucks that would need rear steer to begin with. Oh, yeah, and it's not necessarily terrible. It's not that I dislike it or anything. But when you first kind of jump in this vehicle after being in a few others, it feels like the back end comes out a lot, because that is steering as well as you are. But the steering is quite... It's a little bit slower on this vehicle than the speed of the vehicle. So it helps to be a little bit predictive with it, but you also kind of... You probably want to feed off the steering a little earlier than you normally would, because it's also got the rear steer, and you basically end up snaking the back end around everywhere. But probably at the beginning of this video, I'm sure after I went through the petrol station and all that, I was a little bit sliding all over the place. Which, again, it's fun, but it can catch you out here and there. Once you get used to it, though, it's kind of pretty normal. It's like with the Dolphin. A lot of people say, and I agree with this, like the steering's slow on the Dolphin. I just kind of, because it was one of the early vehicles I used, I almost got used to that, as like, I used to go a lot of places on this game with Dolphin and Lo4f, so I just kind of got used to that steering as my baseline almost for that vehicle. So it doesn't... I do agree though, I'm quite used to, like, you have to be pretty predictive with the steering on the Dolphin as well. I'm sure here, yeah, there's like... I mean, look at the Lo4f, because the tree's kind of blocking my tip. He unpacks, flings his momentum back at the Phoenix, which is enough to rock me back to my wheels. I did fire a winch out, but I didn't even, you know, because it's like when you fire it out, you'd have to repress the button again before it starts retracting it. So I did fire a winch, but I never really wound any tension up on it. Yeah, the Lo4f, though, did unpack, almost fell out, but then leaned back. Bumped back into the sideboard, and it did level me out. And then, yeah, just quickly repack the Lo4f. Quick victory horn, and we're away. So we've had a couple of close calls tonight. It was a good pair to take out. Phoenix and Lo4f. Again, colour matched to boot. So even now in the auto, that's pretty respectable. Like, I know there is certain places the game will auto force you into first gear, but the fact that it was even ticking along in that level of mud, like to begin with, and not just automatically throwing in the towel and sitting in first, is just, yeah, it's one of those trucks as well. Even the sound of it as you're driving it, the revs feel like, it feels like the truck is putting some kind of effort in. I don't like trucks, whether they're powerful or not, that just sound like they're on tick over. Especially when you're in the slow parts, it just, yeah, doesn't strike you as the right feel. It's like when you come out the garage in this map. Often when you spawn kind of, yeah, out the garage, you immediately start in some pretty thick mud that... I've got a Kenworth crane truck there now, so as soon as I spawn I can just fire a winch to that, but that gets in, like, the mud kind of stops you immediately, and it's sort of not the best way to start a map, if you know what I mean. If you spawn in the mud and you can't even move out the mud to begin with, it's kind of like, oh, well, doesn't really fill me with hope for how this map's going to go. And funnily enough, it's actually, that's probably one of the more brutal mud patches in this map. Considering it's a more brutal map than Duncan Bay, but it's actually not that bad. Like, it's sort of quite nice in its own right. Yeah, we got here though. Once the trailer touched the box, it just automatically took it off me. I think it's about 6,000. Not too bad. Again, good little run. And yeah, that was about it. But then, I don't know, I was eyeballing these cars. I just had to come and check if I could ram all of them. And good news, I was able to. Which, yeah, because on previous phases, they'd just be solid. And that blue car, I thought I hadn't rammed it. I mean, Lo4f, good idea. Established dominance. Rub his Phoenix balls on that car, now we own it. And see, that burgundy car, I thought I got away with it, but I honked the horn and it did actually make the car jump. So, I was fine with that, I was happy, I was going to end the video, and then I couldn't resist. I was like, no. Before I quit the game, I had to ram that. And then I was going to go and get the blue car. Look at it. Started shitting itself. It phased through the bottom of the map and ran off. Like, if that doesn't prove that it knows the Lo4f is a goddamn professional. Yeah, an attempt was made, but that's it. Couldn't handle it. It knew the Lo4f. It was the superior vehicle. But yeah, pretty good timing. I kind of respect that car more now for doing what it did. But yeah, anyway, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to our Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf, and I'll be back soon.